Hey, let me ask you this, Sam, since you were basically there in the heyday, what I call the golden era of action cinema, especially with Canon films, and you guys did make great action films that people still talk about, 30 plus years later. What do you think of action films today? Are you even a fan of what they're putting out today?
Okay, the this action genre, we did not invent action genre. There were westerns before the 70s.
Mhm.
Westerns are action. Of course, there were James Bond and similar James Bond like action movies, and there were gangster movies. So
Oh
there
yeah.
were action, especially in Western. Western was full of action, always the Westerns, and we are talking about the 60s and the 50s. But but in the 70s, this group of directors, Joe Zito, Sheldon, Albert Payun, Toby Hooper, whatever, we created together another genre that today we call it the low budget independent genre movies of the 70s, the 80s and the 90s.
Mhm.
It was the 80s. And it was medium budget, and because of the restraint, we had to use physical action. We did not have money for special effects. We did not have money for optical effects, which were very expensive
Mhm.
back then. So our type of action was always physical action what you see on the screen really happened on the set. I mean, of course, with editing and
Yeah, sure.
illusion and all kind of tricks of magic, but it really happened. If you saw a car going in flame, the car really went on flame. If you see a car flipping, it really flipped. If you see somebody, falls from a from like second, third floor to the ground, it really happened. So it created this group of movies, which between the beginning of the 80s to the middle of the 90s. Then the studios got involved. They saw that there is money in this genre, and they started to produce the same movies with much bigger budget.
Mhm.
Predator, True Lies. So they took the same type of genre movies. Now they pumped much more money, much bigger budget. The movies looked better. But that evolved from the 2000s on. CGI came in. Optical effect, computerized effect became cheap, available, especially after Titanic, after the pioneers of the special effects, and it was integrated into action. Now came a moment that you can do anything your heart desire. You want a car flying from one building to another building, landing safely and continuing driving, you can do it, fast and furious, no
Yeah,
problem.
sure.
But physically it cannot be done. Impossible. Cars don't fly in the air.
It's real to me, damn it!
They drop down like a stone.
Yeah.
So okay, and if you want Spider-Man to hold a piece of rope and go around the Empire State Building, no problem today. Optical effect.
Mhm.
So what action became lately, it became much more spectacular, no question about it. There were even better stunt people came from Hong Kong, from China, to perform more elaborate type of stunts, but in conjunction with the optical effects together. And the action is spectacular. It's very elaborate, very spectacular. But what we lost is, and that's the reason for the resurrection of the action movies of the 80s, we lost this feeling, the feeling of immediacy, the feeling of, I call it you don't feel the pain anymore. You see the stars, the big stars, you see them for one or two, three close-ups, and then it's obvious. Then it's so obvious that they are not fighting, that the stuntman is fighting instead of them, a double is fighting instead of them. Or, they're climbing walls, flipping in the air, and all kind of fantastic action, which is it's very imaginable, but not realistic. And in those movies, as you say, in the 80s and 90s, the action was more realistic, was more, you could feel it, you can immediately. And the audience have changed as well. It's not only the creators. The audience that we cater to grew up, with James Bond movies, let's say, in the movies. And the today audience, the action audience, they grew up with video games.
Mhm.
And in video games, the modern video games, everything is possible. So they are expecting to see it on the screen. So all the superhero movies, of course, they are spectacular. But not long ago, we saw James Bond, another James Bond, which tuned down the special effect. No Time to Die. I saw it. So they tuned down all this optical effect, and they went back to a lot of physical action. But there is a resurrection. There is a lot of resurrection, and it's coming up, it's popping up. Like Sheldon Laddish said, they pop up like grass coming up. And more people pay attention to those movies of Schwarzenegger and Van Damme and Michael Dudikoff.
Yeah, there was a more realistic like feel to
It's
it.
a film.
Obviously, because they did film it in real life of like Rambo 2 when Stallone, I'm sure they used stuntman, but maybe Stallone because he's crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one that jumped off the waterfall with that big explosion that they really had to light up on fire behind him, not like a visual effect, right?
Yeah.
And then in First Blood, when he jumps off the cliff and he's crashing through these trees, he really breaks his rib. And you can hear it and see it, and as an audience watching it, feel it.
Right.
You just
That's why I
don't get
say
that in
you
movies
feel-
now. And I'm
you
not
can-
saying an actor should break his
You
rib
can feel
for
the
the
action.
art,
You can feel the action.
but yeah, you can feel it and you can hear him. It's like, oh, dude, he really broke his rib there. But
rather than just be impressed.
yeah.
Yeah,
So what do you?
this is it. But this is the trend, you know. So that's where it goes right now. I don't
Yeah.
think it
Do
will
you
go back
see
to-
these superhero films dying out like anytime soon? Because they've been dominant for like the last 20 years. Obviously, everything's cyclical, right?
Right. Which kind of movies will die out?
Like do you think the superhero films will die out and then maybe we'll
There
get
will be-
mid-budget action, not
at
low
some
budget?
point, at some point there will be a saturation because those are the cycles, you know. If we go back, when I was a little kid, there were Tarzans. There were so many Tarzans. Tarzan was the superhero of the time when I was a kid, and
Sure.
now there is no more Tarzan.
Yeah.
You know, so it goes in cycle. Then you know, there were westerns. There were so many westerns, and we don't hear them. Horror pictures they come in waves. At some years you have so many horror pictures in one year, and then for a few years you don't hear any horror picture movie even being produced, and then they come back again. Science fiction. So I do believe eventually there will be a saturation, and already there are here and there few superhero movies that don't make it.
Yeah, let
With
me
big
ask you
budget,
this.
with 100 million, 150 million, that they don't make it anymore.
Yeah, I don't really watch superhero films. You know, I'm just not that interested. But I will say this: I did watch that new Spider-Man No Way Home, and I will say that film is really good. And I think it probably is like the peak. I just don't think they could do something better. So I think they peaked at what they could do with superhero films. But let me ask you this, Sam. Now you have your like low budget action films, straight to video type. In the martial arts genre, you know, two of the more dominant guys, at least in America, would be like Scott Adkins and Michael Jai White. You got those like lower budget films. And then you just have that spectacle, $100 million film, you know, superhero film. Why don't you think we got anything in between, like a mid-level budget action film?
Right. That's economy. That's pure economy. That's pure numbers, money. When we made the action movies in the 80s and the 90s, there was a new market opened up. This was the video home entertainment. Mm-hmm. There was the model at the time. The financial model was that video rental shop popped up in every corner and every neighborhood, and the studios, the producer, the companies sold a physical cassette to the store for a lot of money, between $80 to $120 every cassette. The store would rent it out, people take it in the weekend home, and this was novelty, this was a new idea. You can take it home and watch it whenever you want. You don't have to go to the theater. You don't have to adhere to the schedule of the television when they show it to you at this and this hour. You took it home, you can pause it, you can stop, you can go to the bathroom, come back, continue. So this was a novelty. And there was a lot of money there. So all these companies, it was not only Canon. Corelco, PM Entertainment, Canon Film, Crown International. There are many companies who are doing this, or at least several companies. I don't know if many, that they're doing the same business. You know, they're doing the same kind of movies. And there was money, and the money was coming more and more. That's why we didn't have so much restriction, and we made medium budget. The truth is that our movies were not low budget. If you take an American Ninja, if you take Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo, both of those movies are 9 weeks of shooting, 6 days a week with 2 units, with 2 full units. That's a lot of money. You know, even if you translate it to today money. Medium budget, it's not studio. It was not, at the time it was 6 million, 4 million budget. Studios at the time used to make movies for 20 to 40 million. So this was the market. They made the movies, they sold it. Eventually, we have mentioned that the studios have realized that they can make this kind of movies. Why do we let those companies make all the profit and we don't know? And they entered this field with movies like True Lies, Predators, bigger movies, you know, RoboCop, all those bigger budget movies, and they started to milk this market, take the money out of this market. But then suddenly there was a technical revolution. 2000, 2010, the equipment became very cheap. When you had to make a movie prior to this, all this equipment, computerized cameras and computerized equipment, you needed a lab, you had to buy a film, and there was certain expense that you have to make the movie. So the product movie was a prestige product because it cost a lot of money to make it. Suddenly, there were cheap cameras, computer editing at home, and many young filmmakers started to make film at home. So it became the paperback version of movies. Now it's not anymore a glamorous product. Now you can make a movie for $5,000, $10,000, you have a movie. You go to the buyer. If you made a movie like this, and then you go to the buyers. Buyers are distribution company, television company, nowadays streaming company. And you tell them, prior to this, if they had to buy a movie, they had to pay $1 million or 800,000. Now, young producers come to them and they say, give us 20,000, it's your movie. We don't need more, we're already in profit. We sell it, then we'll sell it in other countries, in Germany for 20,000, we'll make profit. So this prestige product, which was making a movie, suddenly was not prestige anymore, it was a paperback. Everybody can make a movie, cheap movie. And the buyer got used to not paying a lot of money for a low budget independent movies. We're not talking about the big studio movie. And then when the producer of the medium budget came to the buyer and said, would you buy my movie for 800,000 like you used to pay? He said, I'm not going to pay you anymore 800,000, it's over. I'm getting movies now for 100,000, for 80,000. I'm not going to pay 800,000 anymore. So suddenly the producer is stuck. They cannot recoup the 6 million, the 10 million, they cannot recoup it anymore unless you make a huge event movie. Okay. And then what happened? The budget shrank. And nowadays, if somebody makes an action movie of this sort, which they don't, hardly, they are given five weeks. My friend Isaac Florentin, he's a director of action movies, Ninja. And
sure. He worked with Scott Adkins.
He's given 5 weeks. He has to finish a movie in 4 weeks, action movie. And other movies, they give you 21 days nowadays, the streaming companies, because they say, we're not going to pay. It's so cheap, the equipment is so cheap, everything is so cheap, go and make a cheap movie. Unless you have a movie with big star names and an event movie and it's a huge movie, then we are willing to pay money. So the economy really forced the medium budget to disappear out of the market. So today it's polarized. Either you have very low budget,
other, man. That sucks.
Very high budget.
As a fan, that sucks.
Yeah, I know, but that's the economy of this business. That's what happened to the economy of this business. And there is much more. You need, with all these streaming companies, you need so much product. They need so much product. So they have to churn them quickly. Every 21 days, every 18 days, they want a movie. They need it a lot, fast. You have so many streaming services that are competing with each other. They need product.
You know
And
what
they
the
need it
biggest
cheap. They need product
problem?
and they need it cheap. They don't have the sort of money that the home video market had before. This money does not exist anymore.
Yeah, see, you know what the biggest problem with this is, Sam, that they're just creating disposable product. They're not making movies that we're going to talk about 30 years from now.
Probably, you're right.
They're just
unless,
not.
yeah, unless it's artistic movies. If you make Moonlight for no money at all, for $5,000, people will talk about it. But that's a different world. That's artistic, personal movies. That's not action genre, commercial type of movies. And even then, once in a while, you get a great horror picture like the Phenomena. What was the movie? The Paranormal.
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, so once in a while, even within the genre, once in a while, a genius
You'll have
movie will come along.
sure.
Something special will come along.
Yeah,
But
no.
you're absolutely right. But it's not a death sentence because you have Moonlight, because you have this personal movie, what's called the Nomad movie. So personal movies, which are not action movies, not genre movie, will still exist for low budget, and those movies will. But you're right.
I mean, it seems like in a lot of ways, you know, maybe outside of the Expendables 4 coming out, the action genre is dead in a lot of ways based on, you know, the reason of economics.
Right. Unless there are big event movies, as we said,
Yeah.
as we mentioned, big event movies, and you don't know what the future is bringing. Nobody can predict the future.
Sure.
Maybe different type of action movies. People, there is always audience for action movies. Action is a genre, is a staple. There is young men love action. You think from 8 years old, 8 years to 45, 55, they love action. They like action. It's exciting. You sit at the theater or at home and you see something which is exciting happening, and it's an outlet for inner violence that you have. You want to get rid of some violence. You don't want to go out in the street and shoot people. So you see movies, you see action movies, you identify with your
Yeah, it's so
protagonist.
universal. You don't even have to speak the language. That's why so many
Right.
American films are so big overseas, even if they're not like dubbed or subtitled.
Right. You don't need to understand the language. So you identify with your hero, and the hero will prevail at the end of the movie. And so this is something basic to storytelling in general, not only people like action movies. It's exciting. And this one thing, action movie, you cannot put on the stage, you cannot perform in an opera. Even when you write a book with action, it's not the same thing, the same thing. Only cinema can bring you action to your face, into your brain, into your eyes.
Yeah,
into
it's the perfect medium, perfectly
in a
suited for it.
real visual way. Only cinema. No other medium that we know, artistic or entertainment, can deal with action. The landscape has changed. Today, the king is the streaming companies. The streaming companies, you make a movie, you have to sell it to a streaming company. That's it. Mm-hmm. From my understanding, there is no other source of financing anymore. Wow. You have to go to Netflix, to Amazon. They have to buy your movie. Only this way you can make a movie nowadays. Of course, you can maybe sell it in India and in France, but still, those are the kings. Those are the buyers today. And this old model of, they used to call it pre-sale, just creating an idea. You have an idea, I have a script. Would you give me some money, I will make a movie. It doesn't exist anymore. So unless you have a big name, big star, Netflix will tell you, you make the movie, then we'll sell it. Then we'll buy it. We are not giving you money up front. There is no such a thing. Okay, you have Nicole Kidman. Okay, we'll give you some advance.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it's
but so the whole structure, I believe that trying to, and also the last company that was still using this model, I think, was New Image in Millennium. And they make less and less and less and less movies because they have to adapt to a new world, to a new economics of
things.
The movie business have really changed. It's really changed.
Wow.
Unless you make big event movies, it's paperback. It's cheap. It sells fast and cheaply, and you have to make a lot of them to satisfy. So they tried, New Image tried to do a series of ninja. They couldn't make American Ninja either. So they made like Ninja, Ninja 2, Ninja 3 with Isaac directing, but they stopped. They don't make them.
Yeah. I think they actually only made 2 of them with
Maybe only 2,
with
but
Scott
I know
Adkins.
that they were intended. They believe that it's a market that they can, but it's not. Because if you make it, it doesn't look like a ninja movie anymore if you shoot it in 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's a shame. They're so like,
So they still have this franchise that with the Sylvester Stallone, and that's it. I think they're making another one. This
the
series,
Expendables. Yeah.
The
How we
Expendables. I
learn
think
it
they're
got
making another one, but the third one was not successful. It was a failure.
That's because they
The
made it
first two-
PG-13 and got young people involved, but we wanted to see Stallone and Arnold and the older
Probably.
guys. You know, that's what we wanted. That's the whole point of the Expendables.
So the first 2 Expendables made money. The third one did not.
Yeah.
So
They
they are
changed the
looking
formula
in-
that worked. They had a formula that worked with the first 2. They changed it. The third
and
one
they tried
bombed.
the franchise of London is burning, Washington is burning. This is over. They cannot make them.
Yeah.
David, this is not by all means the end of this form of entertainment, which is called cinema. It's not the end. This is maybe the beginning. New stuff is coming. More exciting stuff is coming. And we have seen the Fast and Furious already number 9. That people love it. It's going. It's working.
They're going to keep making
James
it.
Bond,
Yeah.
the number 25. People love it. It's not the end of cinema. It's just shifting. Things are shifting because you cannot make movies without money. Unlike you can go home and paint as many pictures as you want or write a book. You sit at home by yourself in front of the computer. You don't need money. You cannot make movies with no money.
Yeah.
It requires investment. So things are shifting because of the habits of the viewer, the available financing, etc. Things are shifting, but cinema is here to stay. Movies will be here forever. It's not going. Listen, nobody could kill opera, so nobody will kill cinema.
For sure. Yeah, and that on a positive note.